In this video, we'll explore how purchasing power parity can be used to compare living standards between countries. By looking at the GDP of two of the world's largest economies, the importance of PPP will become increasingly clear. First, some facts. I pulled this data from the World Bank website using a very cool data tool that they have, which I will include in the video information below. The US 2019 GDP was approximately $21.37 trillion. This made it the world's largest economy as measured by GDP in 2019. By contrast, China had a GDP of about $14.34 trillion in 2019. Their currency is the renminbi, and the average exchange rate in 2019 was approximately $1 to 6.9 renminbi. This is not the end of the argument because we now have to consider the purchasing power of $21.37 trillion in the US and $14.34 trillion in China. $14.34 trillion buys a lot more goods and services in China than it does in the US. So if we adjust for PPP, China's GDP in 2019 was approximately $22.53 trillion. That means the amount of goods and services that $14.34 trillion could buy in China is equivalent to what $22.53 trillion could buy in the US. Speaking from experience, I can tell you that the same dollars spent in the US and China will give you a significantly different outcome. Having lived in both China and the US, I've seen the price differentials up close. For those of you that don't know, I am currently based in China as of 2020 and have lived here for 9 years now. I have compared the prices of different commonly purchased items against what I've paid in the US, and I can say with absolute certainty that the majority of day-to-day expenses are cheaper in China. For example, I pay about 68 RMB for a haircut, while my cost when I'm traveling the US is about $20. The Chinese price equates to around $10 to $11, depending on how the exchange rate has fluctuated. When I take the subway, I pay between 3 to 5 RMB, which is about 45 to 75 cents. In New York City, subway fares are at least $2.75. Taxis are a similar story. They're quite cheap here, and a local 10-minute ride should cost me about $2 in the Chinese version of Uber called Didi. Similar rides in an Uber taxi would cost me about $8 stateside. Many groceries are cheaper, however less common items such as cheese are more expensive. My monthly utilities for gas, electric, water, and my mobile phone are far cheaper than what they would cost in the US. My current mobile plan, for example, costs about $15 a month in China, whereas my American counterparts are paying about $40 to $50 a month at the minimum. So you can see the same amount of money tends to go further in China, which explains why the adjustment for purchasing power parity makes sense when trying to compare living standards. Taking this analysis a step further, we should look at the per capita results as well. With a much smaller population than China, with 331 million people, the US real GDP adjusted for PPP per capita is greater than China's. China's population of 1.39 billion results in its real GDP adjusted for PPP, placing it much lower in global rankings. While China may be the world's largest economy when adjusted for purchasing power parity, it does not have the largest real GDP adjusted for purchasing power parity per capita. In 2019, that designation actually belonged to Luxembourg, followed by Singapore second and Qatar third. The US placed 8th, and China was actually 78th. These statistics are according to World Bank data from the same year. Having learned about purchasing power parity before and now applying it to the material living standards in countries, you should have a better understanding of how economies can be compared. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below and we can discuss them together. That's us done for now, and I will see you in the next one.